Tony Abbott has again defended his use of taxpayer-funded entitlements. The Prime Minister says he used travel allowances to compete in community-related sporting events and he won't pay the money back. Both sides of politics have been caught up in the expenses saga, including a now red-faced former Attorney-General Mark Dreyfus. The controversy has overshadowed Mr Abbott's final day at the Apex Summit in Indonesia, as James Glenday reports from Canberra.
Tony Abbott's a fitness fanatic. Almost every day he's on his bike, in his swimmers or out for a run. But it turns out some of his athletic achievements haven't strictly been private pursuits. So another day that should have been dominated by diplomacy was instead spent defending his use of taxpayer money.
I believe that all of my claims have been within entitlement. It doesn't matter what the rules are, there is always going to be an argument at the margins.
The Prime Minister says he was entitled to bill the taxpayer about $1,300 to compete in this Ironman event in Port Macquarie in 2011 because it was in an electorate the Coalition thought it could win. And he says there's nothing wrong with claiming allowances for other community-related sporting events, such as his yearly charity bike ride, the Polly Pedal.
It is a perfectly legitimate thing for a Member of Parliament to do, and yes, to the extent that it involves being away from home, I'll claim travel allowance.
Tony Abbott is just one of several senior government figures embroiled in the expenses saga after it emerged he'd used public money to attend weddings. Snouts in the public trough should be an easy line of attack for an opposition. This morning, Labor frontbencher Mark Dreyfus was calling for an investigation.
If they have applied this lack of understanding of the rules to other events that they may have travelled to, clearly there's definite scope for some serious investigation.
But this afternoon he was apologising. After it emerged he claimed $400 for accommodation in Canberra while he was at a New South Wales ski resort.
G'day.
The opposition is red-faced, but still wants a close look at the rules.
Should the government choose to propose a way of better clarity, of better guidelines for members of parliament as to what can be claimed and what can't be claimed, then the opposition will look at that sympathetically and in good faith.
The issue has again distracted from Tony Abbott's flurry of APEC appointments. He's continued work on his Stop the Boats plan with PNG and apologised to Malaysia over the Coalition's comments on the Gillard government's now defunct refugee swap deal.
Our opposition was never to Malaysia, it was to the former government.
Mr Abbott doesn't see eye to eye with his Canadian counterpart Stephen Harper, who has decided to boycott the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Sri Lanka to protest the country's human rights record.
I do this with somewhat of a heavy heart. This is a great disappointment.
But the Prime Minister's office is declaring his first major international conference a success. It ended this evening with talks with US Secretary of State John Kerry. Back in Australia, one of the country's newer political parties is bogged down in an internal dispute. Even though the motoring enthusiast won the Victorian Senate seat, the state's executive has been sacked by the national organisation. There are also claims the party has gagged Senator-elect Ricky Muir.
We've literally had no contact at all since the 10th of September. We don't know where he is, what he's up to. Nothing has come to us about what is actually happening with him.
The party's executive says the Victorian branch had ignored clear guidelines.
This is kangaroo poo.
Senator Muir is one of 8 key crossbenchers the government is likely to need to pass legislation. James Glenday, Lateline.